The aerodynamic shape of the Ford Sierra was heralded as a breakthrough in automobile design when the car was launched in 1982. It was destined to become a multi-award winner on the streets and in the world of motorsport. The Sierra had some pretty big shoes to fill. Its predecessor was the hugely popular Ford Cortina, a family car whose style, design and broad range had wooed the public and kept Ford ahead in the sales charts. Following two world oil crises with spiralling fuel costs and apprehension over future supplies, car buyers were looking for economy. Aerodynamics were the key to better fuel consumption and would provide the Cortina's successor with a fresh new look. With Sierra, Ford designers made some bold choices, above all with the body shape. The public greeted the design with hesitation at first, but soon they embraced it, and before long rivals were following in Ford's aerodynamic footsteps. Before the Sierra made it to the forecourts, there were many years of extensive design and development. From drawing board to full-size clay models, these intricate sculptures allow designers and senior management to make sure the overall proportions are correct. The craftsmen carefully mould the clay to make the various elements, working closely with the design team to transform ideas from original drawings into three-dimensional form for the first time. Every part of the car, from dashboard to rear light, is created for detailed analysis and to take final three-dimensional measurements for manufacture. The wind tunnel at Cologne was instrumental in the development of the Sierra. One of its prototypes, the Probe 3, was as close as anyone had ever come to the ideal aerodynamic shape for a practical five-seater car. The Probe explored dozens of ideas that found their way into production through the Sierra. And it was from Probe 3's innovative shape that the outline of the Sierra was born, echoing the lines of its prototype. It was a true aero car, 21% more aerodynamic than the average European car of the day. The deep front spoiler and the bumpers blended smoothly into the body, so that the airflow was not disturbed. The halogen headlights were recessed into the low nose of the car. Flush-fitting wheel trims reduced turbulence in the critical area around the wheel arches. The steeply raked laminated windscreen was bonded directly to the bodywork by a special process of direct glazing. The flush fit reducing drag and wind noise. The door mirrors were carefully streamlined. The wind flowed smoothly over the gracefully curved roof, and the lip on the tail broke it away, minimising turbulence in the car's wake.
The average drag coefficient for cars in this class is 0.43. Sierra's is just 0.34. In fact, our aero car is so efficient that it needs 25% less power than its predecessor to cruise at 75 mph. This means that we can employ longer axle ratios, and the higher gearing means less wear and quieter, more relaxed driving. But above all, you save fuel. At a constant 56 mph, the 75 bhp Sierra 1.6 with 5-speed transmission does 47.9 mpg. That's 20.4% better than the equivalent 4-speed Cortina. But the aerodynamics have their biggest effect at speed. At a constant 75 mph, the 2-litre Sierra with a 5-speed box does 38.2 mpg, an improvement of 32%.
This is the Ford C100, built to contest the 1982 World Endurance Racing Championship. It was much more than just a racing car. The C100's engine development was designed to reduce fuel consumption as well as increasing engine power. Much of the philosophy behind the C100 race program was applied to the Sierra engine range, giving it a choice of rugged power units with racing in their blood. The 2.3 V6 Sierra developed 114 brake horsepower, giving 0 to 60 in 10 seconds and a maximum speed of 118 miles an hour. Most Sierras had the latest generation of 4-cylinder overhead camshaft engine in either 2-litre, 1.6 or 1300 guise. This new unit had many advanced features to improve fuel efficiency and reduce maintenance. Sierra engines had brakeless precision ignition, timed for life before they left the factory. A notched cam belt that ran cooler and lasted longer. And the ignition timing boasted electronic memory control. The 1300 and 1600 units had low friction pistons and rings and dual outlet exhaust manifolds. There was also a 2.3-litre diesel. So, right from the launch, the Sierra offered a wide engine choice to turn mountains into molehills. So let's go back to Ford's 1982 promotional film and see the full range of the new Sierra.
So far, you've only seen one Sierra. Now it's time you met them all. There are 5 models in the range. Let's see how each is equipped in more detail. This is the base. Notice the distinctive grey-slatted grille and damage-resistant polycarbonate bumpers. Also the side repeater indicators. Inside, it's just as smart. The instrument panel has illuminated switches. The front seats are fully reclining. Both front doors have handy storage bins and built-in armrests. The back seat folds flat in one movement. Next, the L. This has a body-colored grille and the new aerodynamic wheel covers. The body side molding has a bright insert and the fuel filler cap is now painted to match the body. The driver gets a soft feel steering wheel and an analog clock. The radio is standard. The door panels have cloth inserts. The upholstery changes to Bristol Sanford cloth and the seats have fully adjustable headrests. The L also gets the 60/40 split folding rear seat. Now for the GL. The bumpers are now toned in with the body color and the headlights are halogen. The driver's door mirror is remote controlled. And there are bright body side moldings and window surrounds. On the dashboard, there are bright surrounds for the air vents and switch panel bezel and auxiliary warning lights in the center stack. The horn is repositioned in the steering wheel and the driver's seat has an adjustable lumbar support. The upholstery changes to Chelsea cloth and the back seat has an armrest. The package tray is carpeted and the carpet in the boot is color coordinated. Ah, here's the estate. Well, even a hatchback as big as Sierra isn't big enough for everyone, so this is the answer for them. It was designed as an estate from the outset. Its drag coefficient is still just 0.34, and it has heavy-duty shock absorbers to compensate for the heavier loads it will carry. On the gear, they're self-leveling. The estate is every bit as luxurious as the saloon. And if there's anything you can't fit in the back, you obviously need a truck instead. Now for the pièce de résistance, the incomparable gear. The nose is completely smooth and has a deeper spoiler. The bumpers have bright inserts in the cappings and molded-in overriders. Driving lights and fog lights are built in. It has electrically controlled body-colored mirrors, and the wheel covers have an extra vent. Inside, there's everything you expect of a gear and more. Extra driving aids include a rev counter and the graphic information module. There's a multifunction clock with analog and digital displays. The 4-speaker radio cassette has an electric aerial. The doors have wood inserts. Central locking and electric front windows are standard. The overhead console houses 2 swiveling map lights, and the tilting sliding sunroof has a sliding screen. The back seat has headrests. Altogether, it's quite a car. Sierra then dramatically illustrates the changing shape of Ford, a company that is dedicated to building dependable, efficient, and exciting vehicles.
steady now. It wasn't all fanfares and 10-gun salutes at the beginning of Sierra's life. It took a little while for the buying public to let go of the dapper, fashionable Cortina and let the new curved lines of the Sierra into its heart. But sporty additions to the range helped build Sierra's increasing popularity. The most radically styled Sierra, indeed the most radical-looking Ford since the original Probe 3 concept car, was the XR4i. It featured not only a dramatic biplane rear spoiler, but also a unique three-window side. It was introduced in 1983 at a price of £9,170. In the words of Ford's marketing men, the new Sierra XR4i has been specifically designed as a dedicated high-performance derivative, engineered to meet the demands of even the most enthusiastic driver. Powered by the same fuel-injected Cologne V6 engine of the Capri 2.8i, and with the same close-ratio 5-speed box, it had stunning performance for its day, 0 to 60 in only 8 seconds, and a top speed of 130 miles an hour, all with the space and comfort of a family saloon. The XR4i faced stiff competition from the Audi Coupe and the BMW 320i, but its stylish three-door body and aerodynamic aids did move it away from the run-of-the-mill Sierra and provided the range with some much-needed glamour. Nothing was skimped on the interior, with full gear upholstery and accessories all part of the package. The lower bodywork was wrapped in polycarbonate cladding, which flared around the wheel arches for good airflow. Suspension modifications included a rear anti-roll bar and gas-filled dampers, and bigger brakes were added. Until now, all Sierras had used conventional rear-wheel drive, but in 1985 came a major development in the XR 4x4. The car was again powered by the 2.8-litre fuel-injected V6, but now it was coupled to permanent four-wheel drive. Engine and clutch were basically unchanged, but the gearbox had an additional transfer box added. Inside the transfer box was a viscous torque-dividing differential, which split the power approximately 1/3 to the front wheels and 2/3 to the rear. Ford chose this arrangement for ideal balance between traction and driver feel, and it endowed the XR 4x4 with tremendous handling and first-class performance.
Powerful, imposing, the Sierra XR 4x4. Inside, there's plush gear luxury. Outside, it's distinctly sporty, but restrained and discreet. The very latest in four-wheel drive technology. Four-wheel drive helps to give precise, predictable handling in all weathers. This makes the Sierra XR 4x4 a lot less tiring to drive. Sport suspension with gas-filled dampers soaks up bumps. For 1987, electronic anti-lock braking is now available across the entire Sierra range. To evaluate the benefits of anti-lock braking, or ABS, and the four-wheel drive, we took this Sierra XR 4x4 to a test track in the frozen east of England. The impressive 2.8-litre V6 engine delivers 150 horsepower to all four wheels. Safe, fast acceleration and more grip. Our test driver is under strict orders. Drive at 60 miles per hour, put half the car on treacherous snow and ice, the other half on grippy tarmac. Then brake hard. There's no wheel lock. The driver easily maintains straight-line stability. Without ABS, the car would spin out of control. Seen at 4 times slower than normal speed, this revealing slow-motion close-up shows the rapid brakes-on, brakes-off of the Ford ABS. The ability to steer whilst braking, that's the major benefit of the Ford ABS. From 70 miles an hour, it's brakes on hard and steer, perhaps to avoid an obstacle. There's no drama, no panic. Just a safe and controlled lane change.
For 1987, the Mark II Sierra featured new headlights and modified rear lights and various interior changes. In XR 4x4 form, this powerful road car hinted at its new motorsport cousin, the Sierra Cosworth RS 500.
Awesome power, a brilliant track record in motorsport, and just you have to drive it before you die, I think.
Tim Brown is the proud owner of this 1987 three-door Sierra Cosworth. It's been in his possession for just 2 years after he was wooed away from another high-performance Ford.
I was looking out for an Imperial Blue Escort Cosworth and saw this at the RS Owners Club National Day and just fell in love with it. I wanted a blue Escort and ended up with a white Sierra, but it was just a one-off. I had to have it.
This car is a concours champion, winner at the annual Silverstone Ford Fair 2 years running. But it's no easy task keeping up appearances for the judges.
Everything's cleaned that you wouldn't ever dream of cleaning on a car to such extremes that it's unbelievable. And that's basically it. Concours is all about keeping the car as clean as possible. Bits you can't see, bits you can see, just everything. But everything that can be replaced in stainless steel or chrome basically has been. Things like the battery covers, the battery's totally encased in stainless steel, fuse box cover, cam belt cover, strut brace, the list is endless. Basically everything that can be shiny is. Yeah, so this is the interior. Everything is original, mint condition. The only aftermarket product in here is the RS Cosworth gear knob. See the mileometer, 40,000 miles, genuine mileage. It's just absolutely mint. The seats have been covered for most of its life, so the covers are only really taken off for showing purposes. So basically it's kept pristine. This is a major modification. The discs are 330mm and these are AP Racing 4-pot calipers, so it stops in a hurry. One of the major differences between the standard 3-door and an RS 500, the 500 has the double spoiler with the boot lip as well. This has just the single one.
This RS 500 is no trailer queen. Tim enjoys his piece of automotive history.
The motor racing heritage, just fantastic, awesome. When they came on the racing scene, they just swept the board. They won everything inside. So yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of that still on the road.
Enthusiasts still love to take their Sierras out and about, flexing their car's muscles and displaying the shiny bits at national days and club events. Whether it's just showing off or getting ready for a concours competition, it's a labour of love for these fanatical RS Cosworth owners.
I remember the 3-door Cosy when I was at school. I just always wanted one. So I've had 5 or 6 RS turbos, and I was just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time when this low mileage example came up with, with a couple of owners, and the money was right. So I bought the car with the intention of not having it for long, because everybody that I knew that had a Cosy always seemed to be spending out on it. And here I am 4.5 years later, and I've spent, well, thousands and thousands of pounds on it, but there it goes.
It's not just the money, it's the time, and Ian has devoted many months to preparing his car for the concours. He put in extensive work underneath and on the body, and then, of course, came all the modifications. In the end, there's not much left of the original.
The only thing standard on the car, really, is the gearbox. Everything on it is modified, like it's 400 horsepower engine, brakes and suspension are done. Everything, really. I drive the car to a concours event, and this year the weather's not been on our side, so we get halfway up the road and it pour down with rain, and then you've got to continue the 2-hour journey in the rain, and then get there, and then you're competing heavily with other cars in the same condition. They might have come from the north and you've come up from the south, and they might have had good weather, and it's at the end of the day, it's cleanest car wins. It's a lot of work, but it's good fun.
More to come later on the Cosworth when touring car legend Tim Harvey road tests a completely original RS 500. Since its launch in 1982, the Ford Sierra had been hailed as a breakthrough in automobile design, acclaimed in the motoring press and winner of 15 major awards. In its first year, it rose to become the best-selling car of its class in Britain, a taut, responsive driver's car built to the most exacting standards.
This afternoon at Dagenham, the millionth Ford Sierra was slowly and ceremonially driven off the production line by local MP Brian Gould. Although about a third of British registered Sierras are made abroad, it's always been a top 10 seller here, so it's not unfitting that the millionth one should be made in Britain. Meanwhile, the British Sierra production line rolls on. Minutes after the ceremonial car was driven away, the 1,001st Sierra came off the production line. Christopher Rainbow at Dagenham for Thames News.
The 1985 range was updated, featuring the latest in lean burn engine technology. The 1.8-litre unit offered better performance and acceleration than many of its competitors, driving through a 5-speed gearbox. There was an option of the remarkable A4D 4-speed automatic gearbox, which could turn in economy figures within 1% of the 5-speed manual. At the sporty end of the range, the 2-litre IS was pretty quick, with a 0 to 60 time of just 9.4 seconds and a top speed of 118 miles an hour. It derived its power from a clever combination of the refined 2-litre overhead cam unit and Bosch L-Jetronic fuel injection. The car handled well too, due to variable rate rear springs, gas-filled dampers and a rear anti-roll bar. And improved braking was achieved with ventilated 9.4-inch front discs. In 1987, Ford unveiled a new shape for Sierra to do battle with the Vauxhall Cavalier. It was the booted Sierra Sapphire.
It's a new dawn for Sierra from Ford. The evolution of a proven market leader. 1987 marks the introduction of an all-new model in the Sierra range. This is the Ford Sierra Sapphire. Elegant and distinguished. A spacious, comfortable interior with comprehensive and efficient instrumentation. Elegantly styled, the Sierra Sapphire is a sophisticated execution of the classic four-door saloon. With wraparound direction indicators and powerful flush-fitting headlamps, the front of the car bears a strong resemblance to the rest of the Ford family. Exclusive to the Sierra Sapphire range, concealed drip rails help reduce wind resistance and lessen noise. Drivers will appreciate the car's sure-footed road holding and precise handling characteristics. There's a range of proven engines for the Sierra Sapphire. 5-speed gearboxes are available from the L model upwards. All benefit from Ford's advanced engine technology. Engine technology like lean burn, which contributes to performance and cares for our environment.
According to Ford's 1987 promotional literature, big loads and long journeys are cut down to size by the new Ford Sierra GL Estate's space, pace, comfort and low noise levels. The car's high-value specification provided assets like central locking, electrically heated windscreen and door mirrors, and the option of air conditioning and full-speed automatic transmission. The Sierra Estate was a tough and practical car, but refined and comfortable. In 1987, the familiar hatchback received some subtle restyling at the front. A new smoothed-out bonnet line incorporating flush-fitting headlamps and fresh direction indicator lights. In the cockpit, there was new instrumentation and illuminated switches, with revised steering column lever controls. The whole range benefited from the advances made with the Sapphire to offer value for money to the discerning car buyer. (1992), and the final Sierras slipped silently onto the marketplace with no official launch to mark further enhancements to this well-established family car. The dashboard and interior had a significant facelift, and there were detail improvements across the range. Gearbox and ride and handling were all better on the 89 model. The steering wheel had adjustable reach and height, and power steering was an option. There were new turbo diesel and 2-litre overhead cam engines offering more power and torque than before, all to help keep Sierra competitive with the best the opposition had to offer. Martin Johnston is a collector with a difference. Tucked away inside his purpose-built garage in Hampshire are some very rare racing Sierras. These mean machines from the late 80s and early 90s have an extraordinary racing history around the globe. Martin's an avid Sierra fan, and he's owned and tinkered with a number of road muscle cars. But his passion and enthusiasm have led him to take the plunge from road car to race car. Now he's going racing in the highly competitive Ford Saloon Car Championship.
It all started with getting the Mark II RS2000 with the normal sort of, high lift cams and all that sort of stuff. And then a few years after that, got into Cosworths, and luckily I could afford, a nice one. So went straight into an RS500, totally standard, 204 horsepower. Soon got bored with that, tuned that quite considerably, and then eventually I picked up a nice Moonstone one, tuned that like you do, ended up with just over 500 horsepower, lots of fun in that car, did a little bit of competition with it, but mainly drag strip and speed shootouts, things like that. Got up to about 175 in that on the runway at Brunters, so it was quite good. 0 to 60, 4.5, 100 miles an hour in 9 seconds, so it was quick. But eventually I had to decide I wasn't using it. That was the problem. I couldn't use that power on the road. It was just too dangerous. So in the end, it had to go, and this is the result.
This Andy Rouse-built RS500 led the Australian Bathurst 1000 in 1987, driven by Alan Moffat, and went on to overall victory in the French Championship in '88 with Alain Furzy at the wheel. But Martin doesn't see it as a museum piece.
Once I got it, sat in it, a little bit rough around the edges, I knew this one had to be raced. You can only polish them so much. After that, you have to get them out, blow the cobwebs off them, and with this car, again, minimal changes. All we've had to do is new fire system, new seat belts, very small modifications, different tyres. It's got the original instruments, original dash, steering wheel. Nothing else has had to be changed. Original diff, gearbox, the brakes are even the same. All we had to do is change the pads because they're old, and then you can race these cars as they are in the raw form. Slightly take the exhaust noise down a little bit. Put 2 smaller boxes on instead of 1 box, but they're still quite loud.
Martin and his ANZ liveried RS500 will join an array of Escorts, Fiestas and some familiar Cosworths in the BRSCC Ford Saloon Car Championship, which takes in some of the trickiest circuits in the UK. In his debut season, Martin's keen to get some valuable experience alongside his racing colleagues.
There's a couple of really nice cars racing in there at the moment. The 4-wheel drives have got the edge on the 2-wheel drive cars, but with the 2-wheel drive cars we have more fun. The 4-wheel drive cars are a bit boring really, so on the faster circuits I'm sure the 2-wheel drive cars will be right up there with the 4-wheel drive. It's only the tight twisty ones, or if it rains you've got a bit of a problem. But just a bit of fun really, not trying to break any records, just use the car for what it was made for.
Hiding away under this dust sheet is a very special and quite rare Rudi Eggenberger car. It was raced in '87 and '88 by Eggenberger himself before being sold abroad and ultimately raced in Japan. It's back in its original colours of black with red Texaco sponsorship stickers.
The last race this did was the Fuji 500 in 1990 in the hands of two privateers, and it ended up in a private collection at the racetrack, and that's where I got it from. And then obviously brought back a little bit of restoration work to bring it back to the original colours, which is what I like to do with all my cars. Did a bit of research, contacted Eggenberger, and they gave me some history on the car. So I got the correct stickers on it, back to the original paint, got it running, and this is exactly how it would have looked when it rolled out of Rudy's workshop, ready for the first race.
And race they certainly did, leading the way and dominating the World Touring Car Championship. The Eggenberger cars were legendary, a class apart in modifications and preparation. With the Ford factory behind them, they had the best of the best in every department.
When you look at the cage on this car and the build quality and the panel fitment, everything is spot on. These cars were at least 1.5 times dearer than any other Sierra racing on the grid, and what they did is they flaunted it. They actually did it on purpose. They had the best seat, the best ECU. They had cooling suits when everyone else had to make do of opening the window. Everything on the car was the best they could get. Magnesium rear suspension when everyone else had steel suspension, because money was no object. It was whatever it costs, we can do it.
The Eggenberger team were way ahead of their time in using telemetry, which was rare in those days, even in Formula One.
It was very secretive. I've actually spoke to people who had pit passes back in '87 at Brands, and they were allowed to go everywhere except Rudy's silver Caravan, and that was because Rudy had the telemetry on the cars back in '87, and it was even not really doing it in Formula One then. He was cutting edge. He had the best of everything, and what you had was Rudy could control the car from his Caravan. So if he could see a problem with the temperature, he could radio the driver, and he had knobs they could turn the boost down. They could change bits on the car to keep them more active. And where obviously he did mainly long distance races, it's very important that you could see what was happening with the engine. Hence, he used to win.
But the pride and joy of Martin's collection is the Labatt Cosworth from the 1989-90 British touring car seasons. It's the race-winning car driven by Tim Harvey, and it's completely original, even down to the stone chips.
This is definitely my favourite car. It's not the cleanest, this is the cleanest car, but when you see the chips on this and the marks on the badges and any sort, they all were done by Tim. So I've left it, because that's how it should be. This is the one that should stay in this condition, because this is exactly as it finished the last race. Straight off the track, straight in the museum, that's where it went, and this is how the car is today.
Back in those days, a fresh-faced Tim Harvey was sparring with the likes of Andy Rouse and Rob Gravitt, but he was good enough to finish third 2 seasons in a row.
When I first viewed the car, it was on 4 flat tyres, covered in dust, and hadn't run for 10 years. And looking very sorry for itself. Once you wipe the dust away, it was so original, even down to the original Rouse engine number. I knew that if I was going to buy one, it had to be this one. And with the history with the car, it's done 26 races in 2 years with Tim at the wheel. This is the only Sierra that actually beat Andy Rouse and Rob Gravitt. He actually won races against both drivers, and he was always at the front. So when you see the actual footage of those 2 years, this car, people remember it. And all I've done to it is general maintenance to get it running, like changing some of the fuel pipes that doesn't leak and things like that, and clean the paint.
A hazy race weekend at Mallory Park and a little bit of history in the making. 15 years on, racing driver and ITV touring car commentator Tim Harvey is reunited with the car he last raced in the 1990 season. Martin's racing his white RS500, and Tim has come to cast his expert eye over a car he hasn't seen since he took off his Labatt's overalls after his last race in it.
Well, I haven't seen this car since the very last race of the 1990 British Touring Car Championship, and for me it evokes many wonderful memories. I'm often asked which was my favourite car out of all the cars that I've driven, and this is certainly it. if there was one car I could own, this would be the one. And to see it in this original condition is quite fantastic. I knew the car had been in private hands and hadn't been used at all, but the paint, the stickers, everything is absolutely original. And whilst it may look a bit agricultural in some areas, particularly inside with the old analogue dash and everything else, the car still is a wonderful piece of kit. I know that underneath that bonnet there's still 560 horsepower and the car will still do 176 miles an hour. So it really is a victim of its own success, and that's why the rule makers killed it off. There was nothing else for it to race against apart from other Sierra Cosworths. So they introduced what I call the 2-litre shopping car formula, and predominantly that's still what exists today. So this car is very fondly remembered by all the fans of British touring car racing and myself as well. Well, I may be a veteran now of touring cars, but in the late 80s, early 90s when we were racing these, I was a relative youngster. So to be racing against the likes of Steve Soper, Andy Rouse, it was a tremendous honour for me, and I absolutely loved those races, and the victories that I scored in Sierra Cosworths are perhaps my most sweet. Although one bitter memory I do have is racing at the Birmingham Super Prix, where I led for 90% of the race, only to be nudged wide in a professional foul by Andy Rouse at the roundabout. But that race particularly is remembered for the speeds these cars were doing down the Bullring. The organisers set up a speed trap to record the Formula 3000 cars, which were the highlight event, only to find that they were doing 152 miles an hour and we were doing 176 down the Bullring, and that's still quite a memory. Sitting inside the car, it really is a testament to the 80s and how racing cars were built. Yes, they had a roll cage built into them, but so many of the parts are just standard. The dashboard is standard, the gear lever's standard, the switches and dials are all old-fashioned dials, the pedals are virtually standard. It's got a few gauges put in it, most importantly the boost gauge, which had to read 2 bar or you weren't getting full power, and the rev counter. You had to be careful not to over-rev these engines. But there's none of this data logging, instrumentation, nothing digital in here. It's old-fashioned switches and dials. Well, apart from my name tag, the actual car tag shows it was built by Andy Rouse Engineering, 1989. The cars were run 1989 and 90. And we're looking at the engine installation, and although it might look a little bit grubby to you now, it was never actually spotless. Andy Rouse's cars were never the cleanest cars. He favoured functionality over presentation, if you like, which was one of the big sort of issues between him and Rudi Eggenberger, who ran the works cars. His cars were always immaculate. You could eat your dinner off them. But Andy didn't really care what they looked like as long as they performed. And there was a big war between Andy Rouse and Eggenberger to produce the fastest car. The tuning war, if you like, for Sierra Cosworth preparation took place throughout the 80s, but Rouse was able to win both in the British Touring Car sprint races and in the ETC races and rub Rudi Eggenberger's nose in it. But looking at it now, it may look like a complicated mess of plumbing, but everything in there is doing its function. And to withhold 560 horsepower in there, it really did take an engineering genius, and Rouse was certainly that. Well, the original road cars, of course, produced just over 200 horsepower, so we're talking about 2.5 times the performance. And that didn't come without its problems, at least initially. The cars were always blowing head gaskets, and once they'd figured out how to keep the cylinder head and the block together without it all blowing apart, they then tried to increase the boost through the turbocharger, and the turbochargers got bigger. The next step was twin fuel injectors. We've got 2 rows of fuel injectors here to get enough fuel into the thing to make that power. So development was ongoing and continuous, but this is the pinnacle of Sierra Cosworth development.
Enough of the chat. Tim has donned his old overalls and it's time to get out of the paddock and into the pit lane. Once more, Tim Harvey takes to the track in the Labatt's Sierra Cosworth.
Well, here I am back in the driving seat 15 years since the last time I sat in it, and I have to say, it's totally instinctive. It doesn't feel like 15 years. The car feels so familiar to me. The noise is incredible, just that exhaust right under your seat. I'm just waiting for the first time it comes up on boost to remind me how powerful it was. I'll treat the car with a bit of respect first time out. We never actually raced the cars here at Mallory Park, so it's a bit of a short circuit. I think the organiser of the Touring Car Championship felt the track wasn't really long enough for these cars to stretch their legs. Wow! You can feel the power of this thing just then. Machine. This is what racing cars should be about. More power than grip. Well, I'm amazed the car's running this well after 15 years. I'm going to look at that boost gauge in a minute and see how much power we're running. Can't change gear fast enough. .8 bar. Well, we're getting into it now. I'll be looking in my mirrors. Where's Andy Rouse? Those were the days. Let's get a race series for these cars going and put some entertainment back into motor racing. Fantastic. I think the real noticeable difference between the cars of yesterday and this one is probably the brakes. When you stand on the brake pedal in today's cars just stop, but this has got a slightly mushy brake pedal. Maybe that needs a bit of work on it. Maybe it's feeling a bit tired after 15 years sitting in the garage. I think I would be as well. Right now though, I feel like a 20-year-old given the best Christmas present you can imagine. Well, I don't know how much fuel's in this car, but until somebody tells me to stop, I'm going to keep going because this is the most fun I'm likely to have all year.
Well, that certainly brought back incredible memories, and the sensation of it is such a raw sensation. I'd forgotten how noisy the engine is. It just feels like you're sitting on top of the engine. It's just got tons of latent aggression and power. It's really noisy. You feel like when you touch the throttle it's going to take off, and it's a complete contrast to today's touring cars, which are fairly antiseptic, not that noisy, and you're waiting for the car to get going, and it never does. With this, when that boost comes up, the car takes off. The
car just feels like a racing car should do, like you expect it to do. And of course that's why everyone loved it. It looked and sounded like a thing of awe. The sheer sensation is exactly as I remember it. Very, very raw, very natural, very aggressive.
It's a world champion. It has fuel injection. It's turbocharged. It has a 2.9-litre engine. It's a race winner. It's the British Rally champion. It has four-wheel drive. It's a diesel. It's a hatchback, a saloon, and an estate car. It's the leader of its class. There is only one Ford Sierra.
After the success of the 85-86 Sierra RS Cosworth, the RS 500 evolved further as a potent Group A racer. Meanwhile, the Evolution road-going cars were sold through specially designated RS Ford dealers.
Well, you won't see a better example of a 1987 Sierra Cosworth RS 500. This particular example has only done 29,000 miles and is completely original. Original paint, even the original tyres. The RS 500 was produced to meet the needs of the race team, who required slightly bigger turbos, a different suspension geometry and a host of small changes. But to fit in with the rules, they had to build 500 road-going examples. Thus, the white, black and moonstone blue 500 Sierras were produced. And what a road car they were. I can tell you, as the racing drivers, we all had these on the road, and we used to adjust the wastegates a little bit, and we all used to race on the road. I shouldn't say that, and I don't recommend it, but we did. And that big aerofoil on the back, well, it was just an invitation for everyone on the road, at the traffic lights or anywhere else, just to have a little bit of a go. And who could resist showing them just how quick the Cosworths were? The similarity under the bonnet is immediately obvious. The big turbo, the 8 injectors. What is missing, of course, is all the ancillary plumbing and pumps just to hold 560 horsepower together. The road-going version, dead reliable. A look at the interior of the car shows that Ford were really more interested in spending the money on the engine and the running gear than the interior. Apart from these superb Recaro seats, there's really very little to distinguish the interior from an ordinary bog-standard Retmobile Sierra. Well, the first Sierras on the road were always nicknamed the Jelly Mould Specials. But if this car ever christened a nickname, it was the Boy Racer car. And it's very easy to see why, because you drive the car, the sound of the engine, the harshness of the suspension, it makes you feel like a touring car driver hooligan straight away. The surge of the turbo pulling you is a real addictive buzz. And you get that similar engine howl that you do even in the race car, albeit slightly muted. Of course, a lot of people put big exhausts on their cars and tuned the wastegates up a bit and made them more and more powerful. It was just the ideal play car, really. This particular car, as you'd expect with a car with such a loving owner and such a limited mileage, is absolutely as it was the day it left the factory. Very tight, good power, good brakes, very positive steering. These cars produced 224 horsepower, which in its day was a hell of a lot. And although nowadays your Honda Civic Type R may produce 200 horsepower from a 2-litre normally aspirated engine, this still really was a lot of power in such a cheap car. The RS name and the Cosworth name in particular are legendary for cheap, affordable performance cars, and this totally delivers. It really is quite a raw road car. There's no real great creature comforts, but the driving position is superb, as it is on all sporting Fords. The gear shift is very slick, and you just feel like you want to attack the car and have a go. It's a real enjoyable, fast car. It's tight in all the right places. There's nothing soggy or wishy-washy about it, but it's that engine and the turbo power that is really addictive. I talked about how raw and aggressive the racing car was, and there's no way you could drive that on the road. But for the same feeling that you could get from a road car, but with adequate suspension, enough of a comfortable ride, and something you could drive to the shops, this Cosworth really hits the spot. And it's easy to see why it invoked such following. Everybody wearing Cosworth jackets, Ford badges. People really got behind the brand. And to say that sporting cars and motorsport doesn't do something for a brand, well, the Cosworth proves that it can.
1987 was a good year for the Sierra Cosworth as it stretched its legs in the world of rallying. Ford's had a long and successful involvement with rallying. Its cars appeal to a broad spectrum, sometimes for no better reason than price.
Climbing high up above the road, we picked up Slay and Martin in the Ford Poplar, cheapest car in the world. 209 is an old friend, Nancy Mitchell and Bill Wisdom. Just look at the gadgets in the Zephyr.
Well, the gadgets may look very basic by today's standards, but these cars and the enthusiastic amateurs that drove them formed the grassroots from which modern rallying would grow. As things became more organised, so events like the East African Safari began to capture the imagination of the motorsporting world. These rallies were real tests of strength and endurance, not only for the drivers, but for their vehicles as well. Manufacturers were quick to see commercial advantages in this growing sport. Full works teams appeared, and cars like the Cortina provided Ford with much of their early success. All this was the seed corn for a new car that would become the most successful in rallying history and would dominate the sport for more than a decade. The Escort epitomised Ford's motorsporting aspirations, a production-based car that could compete and win at international level and also be within the budget of the many smaller teams and amateurs that make up the broad base of rallying at a national level. In the hands of such greats as Ari Vatanen, Hannu Mikkola and Britain's Roger Clark, the Escort notched up victory after victory. The 80s saw an end to the Escort's domination with the arrival of more specialised and modified cars like the Opel Ascona 400. This led to the Group B era, with purpose-built rally cars like Audi's four-wheel drive Quattro. But these supercars caused much controversy as the sport moved away from production-type cars. Wings, spoilers and turbochargers became commonplace, pushing speeds higher and higher. The Group B era was apparently here to stay. In 1986, after more than 5 years away from top-class rallying, Ford made the decision to return to the sport. Their only competitive option was to produce their own supercar, and the result was the RS200. 1984 World Rally champion Stig Blomqvist headed the challenge and worked on much of the development testing of the car. He was backed up in the international arena by fellow Swede Kalle Grundle. By the time the RS200 made its World Championship debut on the 1986 Swedish Rally, many of Ford's competitors were running second or third evolutions of their original supercars. Despite this formidable opposition and the loss of Blomqvist's car with engine failure, Grundle brought his RS200 home third. A fifth place on the RAC Rally and the winning of the British, Dutch and Belgium national championships in its first year of competition marked out the RS200 for greater things to come. However, the era of the Group B cars and the career of the RS200 came to a premature end. A string of serious accidents led to a total ban on supercars in rallying at the end of the 1986 season, and 87 brought a return to Group A production cars. In 1987, under a cloud of uncertainty, many manufacturers withdrew from international rallying, having no car suitable for the challenge. But Ford had just the car they needed. Having already proved itself as a circuit racer, the Sierra Cosworth was an obvious choice for tarmac rallying. However, on loose surfaces, the competitiveness of the two-wheel drive cars seemed suspect against the new four-wheel drive Lancias and Mazdas. The four-wheel drive Sierra was a possible solution, but there was a compromise in weight and power loss for the added traction. Ford decided to evaluate the cars in the heat of real competition. They entered the Sierra for a limited World Rally programme, backed up by national championships across Europe. Round 1 of the 87 World Championship and the start of the Monte Carlo Rally. A snowbound Grenoble greeted the Ford team, with Stig Blomqvist and Kalle Grundle driving the two factory cars. And as originally suspected, both cars had their problems. Not surprisingly, it was the new four-wheel drive Lancia Turbo that led the field down to Monte Carlo. Blomqvist persevered with the underpowered four-wheel drive Sierra and made a hard-earned 4th place. Not bad for the car's first outing. The two-wheel drive Cosworth displayed its limitations on snow and ice, often in spectacular fashion. But it was forced to retire almost in sight of the finish. More snow for round 2 when the World Championship moved to Sweden. After the lessons learned in Monte Carlo, both drivers were given the four-wheel drive Sierra for their home event. However, Grundle's rally came to an early end with gearbox problems. Blomqvist put up a spirited fight, but he too struggled with gear selection. But he persevered to the end to gain a creditable 6th place finish. The Lancias were once again riding high through this rally, but pressed hard to the finish by Timo Salomon in the new Mazda 323. In the end, the Japanese marque took its first rally victory in a... Corsica was the next location. Now free from snow and ice, Ford could use all the power of the two-wheel drive Cosworths on the tarmac stages of the Mediterranean island. But it was a tough rally for the factory team, with both cars forced to retire early. However, the Ford Challenge was joined by a Spanish-entered Cosworth with Carlos Sainz at the wheel, and a French-entered car driven by Didier Auriol. But victory on the island resort went to another all-tarmac racer in the shape of Bernard Beguin's BMW. The lakes of Finland were the setting for the last event of Ford's limited international programme. Finnish ace Ari Vatanen made a nostalgic return, replacing Kalle Grundle in the Ford lineup. Ford hoped that his local knowledge would help their quest for success. There were fresh challenges for the Cosworth in Finland, with new narrow twisty stages replacing many of the traditional fast-flowing stretches of previous years. It was also a wet rally, and rain-soaked tracks provided additional traction problems for the rear-drive Sierras. Despite this, both cars ended the first leg placed 4th and 5th. The strong Mazda Challenge came to an untimely end in Finland, both cars retiring from the rally and the rest of the championship. Trouble too for rally leader Juha Kankkunen. A broken drive shaft dropped him out of the top 20, leaving his teammate Marco Alane with a comfortable lead. It was the two Cosworths that provided much of the entertainment, battling now for 2nd and 3rd. Blomqvist held the early advantage, but Vatanen wasn't going to be beaten on his home ground and set about catching the Swede, often with spectacular results. Despite the odd mistake like this, Vatanen managed to catch and pass Blomqvist to gain second position. But a further error, clipping a curb on a spectator stage, dropped him back to third once again. Undeterred, Vatanen pushed hard on the final stages, eventually taking second place and beating Blomqvist by just under a minute. More importantly for Ford, the car's performance on the Thousand Lakes resolved any question of its suitability as a rally car and prompted Ford to enter a car in the RAC Rally, final round of the World Championships. A single car in the hands of Stig Blomqvist backed up the entries of the British factory team and the likes of Jimmy McRae in his RED entered car. Blomqvist started well, finishing the opening day third, just behind Jimmy McRae, who was having one of his best RAC drives ever. Mark Lovell in the British factory-entered car didn't have much luck, retiring before the forest stages of day 2. The Lanciers stretched their lead on the loose forest tracks, Kankkunen keeping his nose in front of teammate Alain. In the slippery conditions, third place had now been taken up by another four-wheel drive car, the Audi Quattro of Per Eklund. But Blomqvist wasn't giving up without a fight. And McRae consolidated his place just behind the battling Swedes. Blomqvist shadowed Eklund's every move and was eventually rewarded with third position going into the final day. However, the four-wheel drive advantage of the Quattro proved too much in the end, and Eklund snatched back third. But the story wasn't over just yet. Marco Alain pushed a little too hard and rolled his car for a second time, ruining his chances of winning the rally. McRae picked up some minor damage on the same stage, but with a fine drive he was still able to make his best ever finish on the RAC. So to the final day, and with the threat of Alain gone, Kankkunen cruised home to first place and the World Championship driver's crown for the second consecutive year. After routine checks, the Audi was disqualified for engine irregularities, which promoted the Sierras of Blomqvist and McRae to second and third. Of the top 20 finishers on the RAC, 7 were Ford Sierras, a convincing end to a season that had started with such uncertainty. If the results of Ford's World Championship outings had been somewhat disappointing, then the story of their exploits on the individual European Championships couldn't have been more satisfying. Jimmy McRae won 4 of the British Open Championship titles, equalling the record set by Roger Clark, achieved in the formidable Escort. The final win on the Manx Rally also confirmed Ford as the 1987 Manufacturers' Champions, a double victory that the Scotsman could hardly have foreseen at the start of the season.
Halfway through the National Breakdown Rally at the beginning of the season, we never thought we would be here in the rostrum and winning the championship. It's been a sort of mixed season, you know, starting with the road-going Lancia. Then luckily we got switched to Ford and everything's gone really well.
the 8 national championships that Ford entered all across Europe, only the Italian championship eluded a Ford driver. And Sierras took an unprecedented number of victories along the way. Overall, the Sierra notched up 28 international rally wins, making it the most successful car in history in its first year of European competition, and beating the 20-year-old record held by the Ford Escort. There was success too for Ford's circuit racing Sierras in 1987. The works teams took 5 of the World Touring Car Championship events outright and won the title for manufacturers in the process. There was also a new lease of life for the RS200. Ford's Group B rally car that had had its career so abruptly ended found a new role in the tough world of rallycross. In the hands of Mark Renneson, the car took a record 7 out of 7 wins in the British Championship and outright victory in both the Shell Oil's British Championship and the BRDA Championship. For Ford, 1987 seemed certain to be the start of a new and exciting era in their motorsporting history. So Cortina's replacement became a family favourite and the leader of its class, with its extensive range from hatchback to saloon and estate. And it was the British Rally Champion and World Touring Car Champion too. Not a bad heritage for a car once likened to a jelly mould. Those groundbreaking lines led the way into a new age of economy and environmentally friendly design. And as with all things Ford, it proved itself on the road and on the track.
And stay with us here on Men and Motors as the celebration of all things Ford continues next with action in Ford car racing.